Reflect is the fastest way to create end-to-end tests for your web app. To get started, we're going to click on Create Tests and enter three pieces of information. First is the name of the test, which I'll call Smoke Test. Second is the URL, and normally this would be your QA environment, but here I'm going to pretend I'm a Trello engineer that's testing the web app in production. And third is the device profile. Are you testing as a desktop user, a tablet user, or a mobile user? When I click Begin Recording, Reflect will spin up a cloud browser and screen share that with me. That browser session is my interface for creating a test. So you're not writing code to simulate users' actions. You're actually going to do those same actions like if you were manually testing your app, and we turn that into something repeatable, and you'll see those steps on the left-hand side. So for example, when I clicked on the login link here, we'll see that that link shows up, the step rather shows up on the left-hand side. To get coverage for visual regressions, like say any regressions on the login form, we can add what's called a visual validation. So I'll click this button here. I'll be prompted to click and drag over a region I want to validate, which I'll do the login form. Reflect will highlight the best matching element. And when I save that selection, we'll capture that screenshot on the left-hand side. Now when Reflect goes to run this test, if it sees a noticeable difference between this screenshot and what it sees during the run, it'll fail to run and notify me. I'm going to go ahead and log in and enter in my password here. And once we're logged in, to assert that I'm logged in successfully, I'm just going to assert that the avatar on the top right appears the way I expect. This is effectively saying it wouldn't show up unless I was successfully logged in. Now I'm going to go ahead and do a simple smoke test workflow of Trello for a new account, creating a new board, adding a few lists, and adding a card to one of those lists. So let's click Create New Board. We'll call this My Board. And within this new board, we have the option to create a list, which we'll do now. So we'll call this First List. I'll go ahead and create another list called Second List. And then on the first list, I'll add a card. So we'll say My New Card. And we'll move that card over to the second list to verify that drag and drop behavior works. And end this test with a visual validation to assert that the card has moved over to the second list. Before I save this test, I'm going to add one final modification, which is to make sure that the board that I'm entering uses a different name every time. So I can click on any step and we'll see the details of what we capture. So this is the selectors that we automatically generate. You don't have to write them by hand anymore. And down here is my input text, which I can modify and make dynamic by using what we call variables. So if I click on Use Variable and add a new variable, here are the functions that we support. We can add a random value by using one of these functions here, like the alpha10 function. There's also other functions like generating a date that's always 3 days in advance, or date time formats or things like that. So we'll call this random board name and give it the value board : and then 10 random characters. Now that I've added that, I'm going to save this test. After a test is saved, Reflect will go out and spin up a new browser session and run those same steps. This is so that you can verify that everything is repeatable. And if there was a problem, you can take action and modify the test immediately without having to go and run through all those same steps again. You don't have to sit and watch the test run. You can always exit and create your next test or do something else. But this is nice for that first run. So again, you can make modifications if you need to. We can watch this test run to completion in real time here. And so you'll see that it's adding those lists, adding the card, and then doing the drag and drop, followed by the visual validation to make sure everything looks correct. The test has passed. So now we have that passing test in Reflect where we can go at any point, look at the details of the run here. So for any test that runs in Reflect, whether it's a test that you just created, tests that you're running on every deployment via our CI integrations or via our scheduler, you get this view, which is our test results view. Every single test run gets it. So it's a recording of the video of Reflect running through the steps. The video is synced up with your test steps, and you get console and network logs. The last thing I'm going to show you here is starting to build up common steps in your test suite. These login steps are going to be something that you're going to use in a lot of tests. So we can actually move that into something that we call a segment. The segment is simply just a set of steps that you can share across multiple tests. And login is the perfect example because for a lot of tests that you'll create, you'll probably do it after you log into your application. I've just multi-selected those first 6 or so steps, and now I'm going to create a segment called login, and I'll save my test. And now that this test is updated to use that segment, I can create additional tests and bypass logging in just by starting from that new segment. So if I wanted to create a new test called account settings and start from Trello.com, this time in getting of a fresh browser session, Reflect is actually going to spin up the browser and run through the login steps first before it does anything else. So not only do I avoid having to repeat those same steps every time I create a new test, it actually allows me to maintain these tests better by, like for example, if login ever changes, we can make a change to that login segment and everything that depends on it is updated automatically. So that's a 5-minute intro to Reflect. Thanks for watching.